Bellhaven neighborhood that is looking to promote neighborhood voices and deal with neighborhood issues. I want to introduce you to our panelists today. Our moderators are Cecilia Taylor, the founder of Bellhaven Action and the current mayor of Menlo Park, and Jakim Hendricks, a student at Menlo Atherton High School. Ms. Taylor?
Good morning, and thank you everyone for being here. I am Cecilia Taylor, a current elected official in Menlo Park, also founder of Bellhaven Action. And we, my team, Julie Shanson and Anielka Perez, came up with the idea to have this forum because it's the first district election for the Sequoia Union High School District. And so we wanted to highlight our first district, Area C, to encourage our community members to be a part of this election process, to be engaged, to know the candidates. And also this was an opportunity for inclusion to include all of the candidates for Sequoia Union High School District. It's an opportunity to hear, see, and ask questions from everyone who has taken the time, the courage, and the leadership to run for office. And I'm grateful to share this space with my co-moderator, Jakim.
Hello, everyone. I hope everybody's doing phenomenal this morning. My name is Jakim Hendricks. I am a 12th grader at Menlo Atherton, and I will be your co-moderator today. I'm super excited as well to be here in front of all the candidates. I'm excited to hear from them and what they plan to do in their running. I'm also super stoked about all of the community members being here today. This is a great day that the Lord has made. And so I hope all of you will leave with something, whether you're a community member, a student, a parent, whoever you are, that you leave with some type of information. And remember to participate in the census. It's not too late. All of you matter and all of you count. Thank you so much. All right.
All right. I think, Jakim, you're going to ask the first question.
Yes. I'm just going to turn this up. All righty. So the first question is, why do you want to serve on the Sequoia Union High School District Board? What are some things you're looking to accomplish? And for the candidates, the first person we have is Carrie. So,
great. Yes. Okay, thank you so much, and thank you for having this forum. It is really important, so thank you. So why do I want to run? So I am in my 15th year as an elected school board member. I served 6 years on the San Carlos Elementary School District, and then I moved over to the high school district to run. And I am just passionate about public education. I became passionate as a parent in the San Carlos School District, understanding the funding and equities of various districts. San Carlos is one of the lowest funded districts in the county. And so I, as a kindergarten parent, I got involved in fundraising. And as I got involved, not just in my classroom fundraising or my school fundraising, I did it district-wide for all kids. And doing a district-wide thing causes you to pay attention to the school board. And so I started paying attention to the school board, and then I ran for office. Once I was in office, I saw the disparities between my community and other communities. And so I really began to fight for, again, sort of this equal funding for all students around the county. So that's what initially got me involved in running for school board. The more I got involved and the more I started to attend education meetings, I became interested in all kinds of topics. I'm most passionate about mental health, trauma-informed learning, social emotional learning. I get very frustrated when we're only focused on academics. I go crazy every time. Most recently, I have been elected to the state SARB, the California State SARB, which works on student attendance, chronic absenteeism. So I'm on that body. So there's a lot of things I'm interested in. There's a lot of work to do. We have a lot of issues in our district that have not been addressed and not solved. So my work is not done.
Thank you so much, Carrie. That is amazing. So for our next person answering the question, I'm going to say the question again. Why do you want to serve on the Sequoia Union High School District Board? And what are some things that you're looking to accomplish? And the next person will be Georgia. So let me just start the timer.
Thank you to Kim. Hopefully you can all hear me. I'm afraid my dog is barking, so I'm going to keep wincing every time she does that. I want to thank everybody for putting this on. I think this is a long overdue conversation, and I would like to make sure that we see it go forward. So I am actually running for re-election. I just concluded my first term on the Sequoia Union High School District Board, and there's a lot of work we need to do. And you know, is it ever going to be done? Probably not, because there's always new challenges that we have to deal with. But I came up, much as Carrie has just said, through my local elementary school district, in this case from Redwood City. And Redwood City has a lot of diverse educational challenges that it had when my daughter started kindergarten, and it continues to have. And I know we have a Redwood City School District board member on this call as well, and someone that I worked with over the years on a ton of different issues that were facing Redwood City, from No Child Left Behind and trying to close the opportunity gaps, to ensuring that we had strong after-school programs that provided academic supports to our students. That took me up into the high school district, and I was doing a lot of work with Redwood City School District on program improvement, which was part of, the No Child Left Behind work that was going on. And Redwood City was determined to have a need to solve some opportunity issues with its students. I was on the committee that looked at the academic supports that needed to be put into place for those students. And I was feeling really good about it. We were being told our scores were going up, our kids were achieving more. And when those same kids got to high school with my son, I was told by the principal at Woodside at the time, not the current principal, that the students coming out of Redwood City were not at grade level for reading or math. And that frustrated me. So I went and ran for the board, because I want to make sure that the kids coming out of Redwood City and Ravenswood are on grade level, so that all the opportunities they should have in high school are available to them. I am very passionate about that. In addition, I'm so sorry about the dog. In addition, I've been working on ways that we can retain teachers, because we can't move quality forward if we don't have a foundation of strong teachers in our district that we're able to keep. And affordable housing is a significant issue, especially for our younger teachers. So that's been an area that I've been focused on and working across the county with other cities and school districts, and figuring out a way we can be creative in providing a strong housing base for workforce housing for people that we rely on, who are essential workers and who are the most important people in the lives of our children. So that's an area that I want to continue to work on as we move forward. And then again, there's issues around ensuring that our students are accessing all the opportunities that they should have available to them. There's a lot of different ways students can go after high school. I'm passionate about ensuring that they have all the different opportunities, that they understand what's available to them, that they can look at community colleges with the transfer programs and the Promise program, that they can look at trades, which are a wonderful way at it's great. I mean, my daughter's boyfriend is a welder. It's like the most amazing thing you can do in terms of needed infrastructures. Then we also need to look at the university system and what it means. And I think that we need to think about what that California Master Plan for Education looks like, which is what guides our university system. And I think a lot of people who aren't from California, we have a lot of people in our communities who are immigrants and emigrants from all other places, don't understand about California, that we have a very structured system. We need to work within that structure, but we also need to break down its walls. And it has a lot of walls in it. So those are areas that I've been focused in.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. So the next person I'm going to be calling is Rich, and the question is in the chat box. I will be starting the timer immediately when you speak.
Okay, well, thank you for hosting this event. I think it's great to get people paying attention to the school district, paying attention to this election. As I said before this call, I hope that we can continue with engagement, throughout and continuing, not just during election time. I think having parent involvement in schools is important. It's one of the #1 indicators for kids to perform well is when parents are involved in the schools. I was involved in the elementary school on the school foundation, and I learned that the school district needed someone with a finance experience. These people who were paying attention thought that someone with a finance experience on that school board would be helpful. I studied engineering and have an MBA and have studied finance and have a background as a CFO of a finance company. And so I thought that my skills would be useful for the need at the time. And that's what encouraged me to initially run for the school board in 2010. I was elected to the Los Alamitos School Board in 2010, and I served for 2 terms. That was 8 years. And when my children had both graduated from that district, I retired from that board. And during those years, I can kind of relate to what others have said before me on this question. You kind of develop a passion for public education. You see all the different things that are going on in areas that you can help. And as others have said, the work is never done. Each person that serves in this type of role tries to just leave the district better than they found it, address changing community needs, and hopefully find good leaders to come after them. So I'm running for this board now. I believe that my skills and experiences as a school board trustee in the past are right for the needs for the district now. There's a need to hire a superintendent in the near term. I've had experience with hiring a superintendent. Specific, what would I like to accomplish? I look at some of the goals and missions of your organization, and I share those, and those are inclusion and community. I think that an important thing, and this is a step in the right direction, is getting, is that my end of time or 30 seconds to go?
That's your end of time.
Okay, sorry.
All right, thank you so much for sharing, Rich. The next person we have is Shamar, and I will be starting the timer when you start speaking. And I'll also keep in mind that I do give you a 30-second kind of reminder in the chat. Alrighty.
Awesome. So good morning, everyone. I'm Shamar Edwards, and I'm happy to be here. So again, thank you for the invitation. I will quickly say that I am running because I also too have a passion for education. I've been in education for 20 years now, and a lot of the goals that Sequoia Union High School District has, I actually feel like those are areas of expertise for myself, and that is supporting and working with our teachers and building strong classrooms and strong educators. There is a focus on the achievement gap in serving students who have not been served. I have a passion for CTE and building out programs that students have access to so they have a better sense of what they want to do as a next step. And so for me, one of our mantras in my campaign is right time, right choice, because right now what we're seeing is society demands a different kind of voice. And I am appreciative of all of the work that's gone on, prior to this moment. But I think we're seeing this across our country that we need to enlarge who is accessing opportunity. And so I see myself as someone who has stepped up to the challenge to provide the expertise as an educator, as a parent, as well, to actually do the work. I think the board that currently exists is, phenomenal. And I believe it's a value add for me to be able to bring my perspective as an educator, as a person of color who is doing this work and grappling with these issues every single day, to bring that expertise. What I would like to accomplish is to have more diversity to recruit and retain teachers of color, because I believe that's huge. I think the rolling out of an Office of Equity is extremely important. And I also want to encourage a culture of innovation, encourage a culture of grassroots efforts from the people who work at the sites. So thank you.
Thank you so much for sharing. All right, the next person is going to be Shanice, and I will start the timer immediately when you start speaking. Ready? And
You're on mute, Shanice.
I'm totally sorry. Just a little nervous. Do I get to start over? Hi, my name is Shanice Stevenson, and I am a resident of East Palo Alto. And one of the reasons why I have decided to run, if I could be truthful, is that I wasn't trying to run, that I actually had a lot of opinions and a lot of recommendations or questions that I was asking at board meetings. And someone said, hey, you have a lot of questions, you should run. And I took a step back and said, oh, I was thinking about site council. I was thinking about the foundation. I was thinking about all these other things to really impact my children's education, but not only my children's, but those who are coming behind them. And so after a couple of months of deliberation and talking to many community members, and really just sitting down with my family and listening to my own kids, they said, Mom, you're always at that school. It just makes sense. And so it made sense for me to run because I am a parent. I do believe in advocacy. I'm a social worker, so I see situations and families experiences and students experience that don't always fit the norm. And so I bring that perspective of trying to think creatively and seeing multiple perspective. And like everyone else, I believe in engagement, but particularly from Area E, I don't see us at the table. When I say us, I'm not just talking about people of color, I'm talking about people who live in the communities that we're trying to outreach to. And then access for diverse learners. I have 2 children with learning disabilities and one who had a health condition. So my process from Ravenswood to Menlo Atherton was very different. And there's still some work to do. I like the school, I like the processes we have put in place, but we need to improve. And then just bring in a lens of diverse student experiences and learning situations that are unique.
Alrighty, thank you so much for sharing.
Excellent. At this point, we're going to ask for some audience participation. I am going to launch the poll. Please tell us. Let's see if yes, here we go. Please answer your question, the questions in front of you. Okay, just another few seconds to answer the questions on the poll. I'm going to share the results so everyone can see. So we've got some students, some parents, some teachers, and some community members. Thank you.
Thank you for the poll, Julie, and thank you for doing the first question, Jakim. And just for clarity, how much time does each candidate have to reply?
They've received 2 minutes,
Okay.
2 time minutes, and that begins immediately when they speak.
Okay, thank you.
A 30-second reminder in the chat box.
Okay, thank you. Okay, well, the next question for the candidates are, let's see, the budget of the high school district is approximately $180 million. When you look at how resources are allocated in the district, what are some ways you would like to see investments changing during your tenure? And this question, the first person to answer the question would be Georgia.
Thank you, Cecilia. So I want to talk a little bit just about the budget. It's a very complex, it's a really complex organization. And it's like being a parent. I'm sorry, like I can hear my child cry, but nobody else can. So it like works me up. It's a very complex organization. As you know, we have 4 comprehensive high schools. We have several small schools. We have a variety of specialty programs as well, such as the independent study and middle college. And so every one of these programs is using a different kind of funding in terms of how it gets its funding, whether there's specialized resources dedicated to those particular programs. We also have foundations at all of our high schools who are the communities that are contributing as well to additional programs for that high school. So it's a total mix of different funding sources. And I think When I first ran, my big issue, and continues to be, was making sure we had transparency in the budget. And it took me quite a long time to achieve solutions on that. We finally have a budget book, which is available, which describes the budget in plain English. And to me, that was a huge breakthrough that was presented for the first time this spring. And it's something that I felt was necessary to be done, because it's really hard to talk about what do we need to do if we don't understand where the money is going. I think that as we are in a situation that we've never experienced before, what we are going to need to be doing in particular is really putting money into those mental health resources. And I'm not just talking about mental health resources for our students. We know our families are facing some severe challenges. And we know we have parents who really need supports as well. In addition, our teachers are facing severe challenges too. They are also at home, just like everybody else. Many of them are in similar situations to our families. They're all trying to work with their kids. And I think that's my time. Is that correct?
Yes. Thank you, Georgia. Okay, the next person is Rich. And would you like me to reread the question? And you're on mute, Rich.
No, so I don't need to repeat the question. Thank you. So school districts, as you mentioned, about $180 million budget. I think around 70% of that goes to people in the form of salaries or benefits. So the majority of what school districts spend money on are the people who provide all the services, who keep the schools clean, who drive the kids to school. I mean, it's people is what you're paying for. At Las Mitas, when I was on the board there, we looked at kind of had a three-part approach to how we spent the money. And I think it's a good framework that I'd want to continue moving forward. And that's looking at people, programs, and reserves. You want to make sure that you have enough of a cushion in case something happens. And then people is salaries and compensation for the current employees, and programs is really, do you add people? Because if you're going to add a new program, almost always that means adding new people. So I would think that that's a general framework that I would want to continue, and you need to look at each of those three things and find the right balance. And part of a governing board member's job is finding the balance. In particular, the question about what I'd want to add, there's one unique thing about this time now that I would add to the list that wasn't there before. And I think there's going to be a need to dedicate financial resources to PPE and health safety issues for the reopening of schools, whether that's, I don't know all of what it will exactly entail, hand washing stations, fans, ventilation systems that I know the district has been working on, whether there's going to be need for gloves or masks or face shields or other things provided by the schools to the community. That will be an area of additional expense. And at this point, I haven't seen any analysis about how big of an expense that would be, but that's an area I would definitely want to focus resources so that we can get kids safely back in classrooms with teachers safely in those classrooms with them as soon as we can.
Thank you. The next candidate is Shamar.
Thank you. And so I definitely appreciate what Georgia and Rich have already shared. I definitely agree and like the framework. What I will add to that is whatever the goals are and wherever we actually want to see improvement, there has to be essentially a strategic plan that matches our resources and matches where we direct funds to. As Rich said, most of the budget is going to go towards, people and programs. The shift or the piece that I would like to draw attention to is if we have a target and we say we really want to focus on, mental health, then can we look back at our budget and see how the resources are being directed there? And also what that means is sometimes we actually have to pull away resources from here to redirect them here for a period in time, because if we truly believe that we want to see improvement, I believe as an educator, there's this concept called deep implementation. You have to be willing to go deep so that whatever you're focused on sustains itself so that you actually see improvement. And so if we, throw change here, we throw change here, we throw change here, the outcomes will basically be the same. And so you have to really say, this is a primary focus that we want to have, and we're going to throw our resources here until we actually see that change take effect. And so we can apply that to all of the current district goals that are there. but it's absolutely necessary. When you look through essentially kind of equity lens, or you look through an equitable lens, it doesn't always mean that everybody gets the same thing. And so I think directing resources to the areas we want to see specific change, measurable change within a particular time frame, is the way to actually shift from, you know, words on paper to outcomes for students and staff.
Thank you. Thank you. Shanice? You're on mute.
Sorry about that, and I'll stay under time. I think this is an area of growth for me. I am trying to learn the budget, so I'm happy that we have the budget playbook, because I actually have been reading that, because it is not clear to me how budget always runs. Not saying our budget is not clear, that's not what I'm saying. So I really appreciate this idea of putting your money where your priorities are. And it doesn't mean everybody gets the same. It means that deeper impact. So I'm going to steal what you said, Shamar. Thank you for that. But I do think there are some particular ways. As one, I think we also need to look at partnership and in-kind. I don't think we always report what else is happening that supports our priorities, because we may not have enough money on our own to do everything by ourselves. So you're talking to the social worker who's always talking about maximizing your resources, right? So really looking at partnerships and what partnerships are doing, because I do know our foundations and PTAs or PTSAs are really doing a lot, but also some of our businesses who are partnering with our local organizations. The other thing that I do think we need to look at, and I'd love to support this, is somehow having an equity director. I think our district, one, put it in the plan, and that was the first step, right? And then you made some decisions around the discipline and all that kind of stuff, and there's budget there to support those things. But now it's like changing the culture for people to feel belonging, not just to be included, not just to be at the table, but that you're welcome and that you feel like you belong regardless of your background or way you look or your ideas. And then I really support this idea of safety when we come back to school. And I'm not just talking about just PPE safety, but I'm talking about emotional safety. That kids feel welcomed in the classroom. And in order for that to happen, some of our teachers do a really great job, but we also want to be human and say we have our biases, we have things that get into the way of helping kids and adults, even myself, feeling welcomed. And so that's a climate change, and that's where budget also can be looked at. Thanks so much.
Thank you. Carrie?
Yeah, so the budget is a huge conversation. Budget is very complicated in the Sequoia Union High School District. So it's how we define things. Like, is it really transparent right now? I would say no. So transparency to me is not just presenting a budget booklet with numbers on a page. Transparency to me is, how do we make decisions? And are we making decisions with the community? And are people understanding? So the reality is, as a board member, when I'm out in the community, I hear that things have been cut. And people will say, why would the district cut X? And as a board member, I had no knowledge. And sometimes those are pretty big things. I got very riled up a few years ago when some people would say it's a small program, but to me it was a significant program. Our teen pregnancy and prevention program was cut. And board had no knowledge of that. To me, that's a significant, critical program. Another thing that cut at Redwood, where many of our pregnant and parenting teens end up, unfortunately, we had a child care center that was run by a fabulous nonprofit. That was cut without the board knowledge. And I heard about it from child care advocates who were concerned that we would remove a nonprofit from Redwood. These are the things I don't like. And I brought this up with my board colleagues, that we shouldn't be involved in every single decision. There's too many, but we should understand how decisions are made, and we should at least be alerted when things are being moved around. One of my board colleagues who's not on this call, his response was, we don't need to know about everything. It's too complex. So I would say we're not transparent. and there's work that needs to be done. I agree with Shawnee's. I would like to see an equity director. I would actually like to see a mental health person in a high-level position at the district office. So again, this is an area that needs more work. We need more conversations, but I'm most concerned about this idea that significant programs are eliminated without board discussion. Just one more example that riled me up, Family Connections, one of my favorite nonprofits that does wonderful things. It's a co-op nursery school. My kids went to a co-op nursery school. I feel like that's why they did so well in school. So this wonderful co-op nursery school that serves underserved kids, we all of a sudden decided to start charging them rent. Oh, sorry, am I over? I didn't hear the ding. I will stop.
Sorry.
I got riled up. I can go on and on about this.
All right, we're gonna move on to the third question. It says the board will choose the next superintendent. What qualities are you looking to ensure this person has? What does the district need in a leader for the next 7 to 10 years? And so the person we're going to start with, or the candidate we're going to start with, is Rich. And your 2 minutes starts when you speak.
I'll start by unmuting this time. Thank you. So picking a new superintendent is a very important thing for the school board to do. As many people know, that's the only employee of the school board. School board members can't do anything except at a publicly noticed meeting with something on the agenda when they have 2 votes along with them. The superintendent can do a lot, and so it's really important to pick a person that represents the board's wishes and follows the board's guidance, but is also in touch with the community. I think 2 key words that I see associated with your organization that I think are super important for a superintendent are inclusion and community. I think the district will be well served by including as many voices. I like what someone said earlier about people not just feeling included, but belonging. A specific on that, I heard one thing that someone said that there's not enough translation services at meetings, that some people feel like they can't participate because of language barriers. I think having more translation services broadly available would make more people be able to participate. But I think what we want to do is have all parts of our diverse community feel included and belonging, and then communication. There have been challenges in the last few months, and I think many of them go to communication between the district and the employees, and between the district and the parents. And other districts in the state have gone through very similar or exactly the same COVID situation and come through feeling all like a big group with good trust, and this district didn't. And I think, but yet every district had to do the same thing, and every district went to all distance learning, and the process was different here. And I think it's because of communication. And so that would be an area, again, inclusion, community and communication would be what I would look for, but really I would want to run a process and hear what the whole community wants and use that to guide the decision making.
All righty, thank you so much. The next candidate is Shamar.
Thank you again for the question. I think one of the mantras I personally live by is leadership matters. And in my 20 years, I've never worked at a school that I didn't transform or kind of take to the next level. And so looking for a superintendent is a big, big task that the current board and whoever the new board will be will have to undertake. And so I'm looking for someone who actually has a track record. As an educator, I rub shoulders with these people daily, and I understand the difference in getting a title versus having actually done the work. And when we look at the areas in the district and districts across, the country, this is not specific to Sequoia, but where are the high leverage problems? Where are the chronic and historical trends that we haven't made a dent in? Can that person come in and have a game plan to affect change? Is there a track record that we can point back to say, oh, you actually did this at a previous school, or you did this work at a previous district? And I think a lot of times superintendents, they move from one district to the next, they know the process, they know how to, you know, weave themselves in. But I'm actually looking for someone who has outcomes, who has data, who says, we started here, but after my participation in leadership and mobilizing people, we took them here. I'm equally interested in hiring a superintendent that can really affect the culture. And Shanice talked about it, where there's a sense of belonging. I was an employee of the district, and I don't know that I benefited from that particular culture, but I think the culture of innovation, a culture that says, you're welcome, and that's from all stakeholders, not just our students, not just our teachers, not just our parents, but also the employees, because a superintendent is going to have to tap into the talent that currently exists within the district, and also tap into the talent that we want to bring in.
Thank you so much. All right, our next candidate is Shanice, and I will start the timer when she speaks.
I got my speaker on now, so I'm excited. You know, this is a really good question. My hope is that I will be involved in that process in the fall, because I think it's important to have the new board members to be a part of that process, because whoever wins is going to be working with this person. And so we should have a say in that, as well as our community. But you asked, what are the characteristics I'm looking for? Right now, I have this image that literally came up of someone rolling up their sleeves and ready to get down to business. And I know that's kind of like Midwest language where I'm from, but it really is this person with grit who has courage and show that they have a real good strength of character and resolve. This is not about a people pleasing, right? Our goal is for kids to be successful after high school, during and after high school. And so this person has to be zero focused on students. And then the other thing is, but they need to know the how. You can have a great leader, but if nobody's going to follow you, you're not leading. You're just a one-man, woman band. And so what we want is someone who's going to get down, get dirty, be grassroots, have humility to say I'm wrong, to be passionate with the board about things that are working, and also be honest. And not because the board asked them to share the challenges, but for them to offer the challenges of saying, this is really hard. And I don't think it's just bringing teachers along, it's bringing parents, it's bringing students, your admin staff, your staff, who's your executive assistants and bus drivers and all that kind of stuff. And I think that that is really important, because we're not going to get there alone. We're going to have to get there as a team, especially recovering from the pandemic, because we actually don't know what the impacts will be. Thank you.
All right, thank you. The next candidate I would like to hear from is Carrie.
Okay, I'll try to listen to your warnings that I'm over time this time. So the most important thing the board does is hire and evaluate the superintendent. It's a huge job. I agree with Shanice. We need to wait for the new board to be seated. They've already started asking my colleagues. We need to wait. I don't want to do anything until the new board is seated, so we can finally have the voice of East Palo Alto, East Menlo Park, and North Fair Oaks as we make this decision. We have to ask better questions. And that was my big learning. I've been through 4 different superintendent searches. This will be my 5th. We have to ask really good questions. The board, as we develop our questions, when we interview candidates, and also the questions we take to our community, we really need to improve that. So even when we're doing our LCAP right now and we go to the community and ask questions, I feel they're not good. Like an example, last time we interviewed, I was at Carlmont as we were asking parents and teachers for input. You know, it was such a boxed in question. We need to be more open-ended. And the questions we need to ask the community, where do we need to improve? What do we need to do? We need to be humble as we ask those questions. The leader I will be looking for, again, I want somebody who, they don't have to be a mental health expert, but they have to understand it's not just academics. You know, for kids to be successful, it's a 3-legged stool. They have to have behavioral, have to be good in the area of behavior, in academics, and social emotional. They have to understand that. They have to be up to speed on the latest brain research, not an expert, but just listening to what we know now about the brain and how kids learn, and that teenagers make mistakes, right? That's part of the process. So, but most of all, I want a humble leader. I don't want somebody coming in to say, I have all the answers and my superintendent staff, we have all the answers. We don't need any input. I want a humble leader to say, this is so hard. We cannot do this alone. A leader that listens to the board and has the board have good conversations. Am I out of time?
Yes.
Okay.
All right, thank you so much for sharing. So I will be moving forward with Georgia.
Thank you. So the superintendent, as has been alluded to, is really the only employee for the board. The board hires and fires and evaluates the superintendent. And it is a very critical relationship, because if you don't have trust in that relationship, you aren't, as an organization, going to be able to lead. You're going to get across that battlefield and look behind you, and the warriors are still standing back there with their not following you. So I think that it's a difficult job, because we're asking for someone to come in quickly and form fast relationships with a level of trust that's required. To Rich's point, in the budget discussion, a school district is almost all people, and you have to build those relationships in all those different ways. As that superintendent, you have to be able to work with your board, work with your principals, work with your teachers, work with your district office staff, work with your community. Ideally, also, you're really talking to the students, right? Because at the end of the day, it's your students and your teachers in the classroom that are the quality of your education. So it's a very difficult job. And I think what you'll see, particularly when you look around the state of California, is that we actually only have superintendents on average for 3 years. It is that hard of a job. And it's a hard job because of the expectations that are leveled on schools from the federal government on down. And we forget, when we're on the ground, all the different juggles that someone's facing. So when I'm looking for a superintendent, and this would only be my second time through, and I think it is a tough selection process. I do a lot of hiring in my day job. I think that this hiring process in particular is tricky, because there's a lot of things I would prefer to be able to do in this type of hiring process that I'm not allowed to do, right? So to Carrie's point, sometimes, okay, we don't get to ask all the questions we want.
All right, thank you so much.
Thank you. So someone just posted in the chat the district map. I strongly encourage you to take a look at that. And I'm going to do our last poll now, leading into our last two questions. So I don't, let's see, I'm gonna stop sharing these results. And then I'm going to close the poll. Let's do poll number 2. Changes. What are one or two of the following changes that would impact you or the students you care about most? And you can vote for, we'd like you to vote for 2, or 1 or 2. Panelists, you're welcome to vote also.
The message under the poll that on my screen, Julie, says that we cannot vote as the host and the panelist.
Oh, okay. Thank you, Cecilia. What if that was a box I forgot to check? Okay, I'm going to close the polling in another 10 seconds. Take your time. Okay, the poll is closed. I'm going to share the results now. Thank you. I'm sorry. I got a message that it was too fast. Can we take another minute or two?
Yes,
Okay.
and is it possible to add something to there, just paying attention to one of the attendees said that there wasn't anything around diversity for students with special needs, a question on this poll. And since we only have, this is the last poll, I don't know if there's any way to include that in here, because I think we pre-populated these questions.
We did pre-populate the questions. Thank you so much for adding. And please, in the chat, add questions. If there's something that I missed that is a change that would impact you or the students you care about most, please let me know. Let us all know. Oh. One thinks I could edit it, however. Okay. Let me look here. Stuart, if it's okay.
I appreciate everyone's patience.
Yeah, thank you very much. I think that if I were to edit it, you'd have to vote a third time. I didn't realize that it wouldn't hold the responses from before, that it would look like a brand new poll.
Well, this is a great opportunity to let everyone that's attending to know that the Belhaven Action Team, along with all the candidates on this call, discussed a second forum, potentially, I believe, October 31st. To continue the conversation. It is really challenging to pick and choose questions to ask in a format like this, just in 90 minutes. Education is a continuing conversation. So just to let you know, so we will address the questions that are in the chat, things that we're not able to ask on this call. And so, and being mindful of, there was a question posted in our Q&A. And since we do have actually a few extra moments, if we could give the candidates maybe 1 minute to respond, but I'd love to address the question from the public. So if either Julie or Jakim, if you want to read the question, I'd appreciate it.
Sure. And I screwed up the poll. By the way, the thing that was voted most in the poll, as you saw, was the last question, which is more attention to emotional health and a better collective understanding and awareness of warning signs of emotional distress. Question in the Q&A is, could you please let us know how you would improve the return to school plan? Currently, it's unclear when and how we can return to school in person, even if we clear the safety threshold.
And as far as the order, I think it is appropriate to start with the two current board members. So we'll start with Georgia and then go with Carrie for a response. And this time you'll have, unfortunately, it'll just be 1 minute.
All right,
So,
and 30-second reminder.
Okay, so Georgia?
Okay, so the question is, how are we going to return to school? I believe is what the question is, to summarize. So I think that we had asked for a plan on return to school. I think our first issue on return to school is, and it was in actually the California Teachers Association has already come out with a statement on this, I think as of yesterday, is around this issue of safety and what is safe for teachers and students to be back in a classroom. And by that, they're referring to vaccinations and testing. And as you all know, the science is out still. And so it's very hard to make a determination about when in-person learning in its full sense can start up again, because this is going to be the big issue. So with that known, it's more a question then of working with our teachers union and our teachers directly on how can we get some small group things happening on campus that are directed towards our students who need it the most, whatever that might be. Sorry, I think that's my time.
So complicated question, needs a lot more time than 2 minutes. So I think we're really slow and behind the 8 ball right now. I wish we had a written plan. I wish we had some priorities written that we could give the community. I wish that our fields were open. They should have been open last summer so our kids could at least play tennis and at least run around the field. San Mateo Union had their fields open with somebody monitoring it so kids could at least use the facilities that belong to our community. I've been advocating for that. Our fields are still closed. I think we should be doing learning pods the way Ravenswood is doing learning pods. Ravenswood, oh my gosh, what a best practice example. Partnering with their nonprofits like the Boys and Girls Clubs, partnering with East Palo Alto Tennis. I just heard about what East Palo Alto Tennis is doing. They're tutoring and the tennis program is operating. That is phenomenal. We first need to start with pods, and we should already be doing that. The board has the ability to make that decision. And then of course, working with teachers, yes. We need people who can work with the teachers union, who have relationships with our teachers. We need, because we can't open school. Staff.
Thank you so much for sharing. The next person would be Rich. So I'll start the timer when you begin.
Okay, sure. Thank you for the question. Clearly vaccines and determining what is safe and when it's safe to go back to school is an ongoing question, and there's a wide range of opinions. Some people think that everybody should go back to exactly the way it was before, and other people think no one should go to school till everyone on the whole planet has been vaccinated, and there's a whole range in between. I think the priority as a school board member, you bring your own opinion, but at a big part of the job is listening to the community, and in this case, the community has a very wide range of opinion. Super high priority for me would be getting the kids that are not able to access the curriculum from home because of internet access or other issues at home, to get them a place to go, whether it's at school, whether it's at a learning pod. If there are other solutions, but those are 2 solutions I've heard for that. And then shortly thereafter would be the kids that just can't be, or maybe included with that group would be kids with special needs for whom Zoom just does not work. And I think there may be opportunities to find some employees who are comfortable with some conditions back at school with it not being everybody. And so I'm looking at something that's more of an opt-in to meet the most at need.
Right. Thank you so much for sharing. And the next candidate is Shanice. I will begin when you begin speaking.
Okay, thank you. I think going back to school is going to be a combination of art and science. The art of bringing people together and the science of numbers. So in my mind, what I need is more data. how many kids have a health plan where they have compromised immune systems or medical conditions? What is the space, the physical space? Because we're still going to have to do 6 feet difference. And the number of kids who are not doing well. And this may not be who we think they are. The kid I thought was going to do well, I have 2, is not doing so well. And the one who I thought would be doing a horrible job at distance learning is doing phenomenal in distance learning. So I think there's some surprises there. So I don't want to like define who that is. But I do know we need some concrete data to have a really good idea of who can come back and who can't. And that's looking at data of health plans, looking at kids with learning disabilities who are not doing well, or those kids, it's not even about a learning, who's just not doing well at home. And then also really working with our teachers around what they can do as well. Thank you.
And then the last candidate that we will be hearing from is Shamar. So I'll start to determine when she begins.
We all got one time when we started talking when we were muted. But in agreement with the panelists, I would just like to build on to advocate for options for families, because there is no one story. And I think for certain families, we don't know the conditions that they live in. And so I think a hybrid option as a next first step for families where it works for them to, stay at home and do distance learning, that should stay an option. And then for families and students that they benefit from being on campus and supported by staff members, that should also be an option. My children's school, La Entrada in Las Lomitas, my children go back to school on Monday. And I appreciate that the superintendent laid out a very clear plan. And parents need clarity and they need communication so they can, essentially organize their life and their lifestyle. And so, the first group were the most at risk. The second group were essential workers and students who had learning disabilities. And then the final is kind of those who are most comfortable. And so it'll still be distance learning, but it's a clear plan that's laid out. And I'm just appreciative that that option was put on the table for us.
Alrighty, thank you. And so from that question, we will be moving on to our fourth question, I believe. In that question, Cecilia Taylor will speak on this question.
Thank you. And I appreciate the panelists answering the question from the attendee. And the attendee, I really appreciate you putting it in the chat. So the next question is, and this question came from when the attendees registered, they were able to put questions that they wanted to hear you answer. And so this question came from a Sequoia Union High School teacher. 2 weeks ago, Jackie Sebrian decided to drop out of the race and fully support Shanice Stevenson. She explained that she did so because her views aligned with Shanice's, and she has always fought for equity and advocated for diversity, and realized that she needed to be supporting Shanice's ability and skill to represent her community instead of trying to take her place. For the first time in history of the Sequoia Union High School District Board, there is an opportunity to have 2 experienced women on the board in today's climate who happen to be Black. The movement is going and moving forward, and the opportunity to have 2 highly qualified and knowledgeable women on the board is possible. I, along with many of my I don't use this term, BIPOC co-workers in the district and community would like to know from the non-BIPOC candidates why they are choosing not to follow Jackie's lead, despite their own platform advocating for the need of more representation. And I know that is an extremely long question, and I'm not sure if Julie put it in the chat, but I just wanted to give the person who asked this question an opportunity to get a response. And I don't know who, if you want to raise your hand randomly to determine who answers this question first. But I just think, for me, it was, to me, it's an uncomfortable question. And so it wasn't the first question to ask, right? This is towards the end, and just giving an opportunity for the public to see how we think as candidates, I think is extremely important in the moment. And so I don't want to pick somebody to answer the question. I'd rather you volunteer. Carrie?
Yeah, tough question. So in my district, District B, I did hesitate about running again, right? Even though I said my work is not done. But if there was somebody who really wanted the seat, and if I felt they were qualified and good, I may have done the same thing, right? So nobody wanted my seat. Even though I tried to talk people into running for school board, I had trouble. So that's why I'm here. So excited to have the possibility of Shawnice on our board. I mean, I am ecstatic about that. I said to her at one point, you can help lead us. I don't think she liked it when I said that. I think when I said that to her, I think she came back and said, maybe I don't want to run. I don't know if I want to lead you. But I'll tell you what makes a good board. It's different experiences, different styles, but most importantly, people who can work well together. People who listen to each other. Right now, I don't feel like our board spends time really talking to each other. Like in our retreats, we're not really talking to each other. Like the president right now doesn't meet with each individual board member and say, what are your hopes for this year? We don't have those kinds of conversations. So what I really want is a group of people that's going to be super high functioning, working together as a group and working with our community. So that's my hope for the new board.
Georgia?
Thanks. I really appreciate the question. I think it's these hard questions, right? The uncomfortable questions that we are needing to really grapple with. And so thank you to whomever asked the question. I think that there's a lot of differences, right? So it's what you're bringing to the table that matters a lot. And for me, it's about the fact that the Redwood City School District is the largest feeder district into the Sequoia High School District. And it has very specific challenges for its students, just as Ravenswood does. And just as all of our school districts do. We have 8 different districts. And so for me, it's about the fact that when I ran in 2015, it was about representing Redwood City on the school board and our students and making sure that we were able to start discussions with that school district in a meaningful way that articulated our students into the high school district in a way that gave them the opportunities that they needed. And I think that extends to Ravenswood as well. But that is primarily why I'm running, and not primarily why I'm running, but that's one of the main reasons that I'm running. And it continues to be my reason as much as anything else does. We have a board that has a tendency to get overrepresentation of specific areas in this community, which, as someone pointed out, is extremely large. This is not a small district. It is physically quite large. It goes from Belmont down to Portola Valley, out to East Palo Alto. And so there's a lot of different types of representation that need to be at the table. And I welcome actually more, obviously. I would like to see more people stepping up. I'd like to see more people coming out of Redwood City and Ravenswood stepping up. It was part of the districts that we had to create to do that, right? So the 5 districts to allow us to bring in more of that representation. I believe I'm done. Is that correct? Okay, sorry.
2 seconds to spare. All right. Now you are. Okay.
Sure. So I mean, it kind of goes back to question number 1, and why am I running at all? And that's, I believe that my skills and experiences are right for the district now. I like what Carrie said about having a board that works well together. I think having diversity of thoughts and opinions. And I think it's important to look at what the role of the school board is. The school board, governs by a 3-person vote, not any one person making those decisions. And a big part of what governing means to me is to get input from all communities throughout the whole district. I'm not running to represent one city. I'm not running to represent one area. I'm not running to represent one type of person. I'm interested in governing. I'm interested in the school board working well. I'm interested in the school district working well. I bring kind of an engineering business perspective. I hate inefficiency. I hate things that aren't working well. I want to try to make them better. I had a specific idea for the school board that I shared with the school board members already of how I think that school board could be a lot more collaborative. And that's what I would want to bring to district, it starts, for me, the governing team works well, then the whole school district has a chance to work well. And I think there have been challenges the way the school board has functioned in the past, and I think I can be part of a solution for that.
Thank you for your responses. I'm not sure if anyone else wanted to respond to this question before we move on to the next. Shanice and then Shamar.
Thank you for the question. I think this has been like the #1 question people have been asking me. And I know Jackie is on the line. It's quite interesting because when Jackie and I met, we both liked each other. And so felt like we were both strong. And so it was surprising because it doesn't happen in the world today that people step aside for someone else to do it. It rarely happens, I should say. I shouldn't say never. So I thank Jackie for doing that. And I think she would have stayed in there if she thought that her skills and what she could bring was different than mine and that it is what the board needed at that time. But we aligned not just because of race, but because of ideas. And yes, I come from a different perspective coming from Ravenswood. And I do think that is different than coming from other districts like Las Amitas or something like that. It doesn't mean it's better or worse, it's just different. And so I just want to be clear that it was the ideas as well, not just coming from Ravenswood. And I appreciate that. And we have agreed that she will continue to sharpen me because I don't come from a teacher's perspective. And so I'm happy to say that. And I just wanted to put that out there. So thank you.
And if I could just jump on that as well. Different is not deficit. And I do believe that a variety of perspectives, a variety of where you sit in life, life is a prism and how we look at things kind of forecast out what we believe. I'm just excited about the opportunity to actually feel the courage and feel the support. There are people in our communities that want change. They want a different voice. They want representation. We have an opportunity, to do that. But I also think we have ideas and we want to not only represent as people of color, but we want to be, valued and measured based on our content and our experiences. And so I appreciate Jackie. I haven't had the pleasure to meet her. I appreciate the bold steps she took based on her convictions. And again, just having this opportunity to work with this body of folks has been an honor for me. But again, some people just want to see change and they want different voices at the table. And, I'm not originally from this particular area, but I absolutely understand the range of needs that are represented in the district. And as an educator who does this work daily, I can speak to strategies and action steps and not only be at the high level, but on the ground simultaneously. And that only benefits the district in the long term.
Alrighty, thank you, everyone. All the candidates I heard from, thank you so much for sharing. So we are going to move forward just to make sure that we're on schedule and we're on time because I know we all have different obligations. So we're going to move forward to the 5th question. And the 5th question is, cultural competency is an important skill that leaders need to model. It's documented that students respond more favorably when teachers and administrators look like them. Where do you see opportunities as a policymaker to make changes on this front? And before I start, I'm just going to call out the order. And we have Shanice in first, and Carrie, Georgia, Rich, and then Shamar. So Shanice, if you want to start, I'll begin the timer when you begin speaking with the 30-second reminder.
Thank you very much for asking this important question. I would say cultural humility is probably more important. And I know that's been overused, but there is this willingness to learn about others. So that means I'm listening to you without bias, not creating a story in my head before you even finished your question, right? So that it's very important that we have leaders who can just take what we call in social work this deep breath and say, whoo, this is not personal. Let me hear what you're saying, right? And I do think that that piece is really important. And what would that look like practically? There's a couple of different things. When you're thinking about cultural competency, yes, it's hiring people of color to ensure that there's diversity there, or people with diverse learning experiences, or whatever the case may be. But that starts in HR. What does your policies look like? Where do you recruit? And do you have a commitment? Do you look at the numbers and say, hey, we don't have enough people? Are we really doing all we can to recruit the right kinds of people to work with us? Just like we do special ed, there's special curriculum credentials. We have to go above and beyond and different than what we do in certain content areas. So I say let's start in HR. The other thing is, until that happens, you just need to change the shift in the culture, meaning that what is your culture of humility? Are you looking at yourself? I remember the first time my boss ever said, you got to make it easier for people to talk to you. I'm like, what? Like, what I got to do, be nicer? Yes, there's tools out there that helps you to listen and see people. That's what makes a good social worker. But it's not just being a good social worker. What does it mean to be connected to someone else who doesn't share your own views? How can you hear the deeper meaning, not just what they say, but what does it mean? And can you take the meaning out and make we disagree, that doesn't fit here, but at least we've heard the meaning. And so when we think about that, that's what needs to happen, not only in the classroom, but the secretary at the desk, or the bus driver, or whatever the case may be. So there are some practical things that you can do in trauma-informed training that teachers and staff, all staff and board members should be getting that, how to really change our language and making it more welcoming. Okay, I didn't hear the beep, thanks.
I'm sorry, I'm trying to make it as loud as possible. All right, so for the question, our next candidate is Carrie.
Yeah, you could do your beep really loud for me if you need to.
Okay.
So I believe as a policymaker, the work starts with ourselves. And I certainly have done a lot of work in the area of implicit bias, cultural humility. I still have more work to do. It's hard, it's ongoing, it's painful. I would be totally vulnerable and share something. As president of the San Mateo County School Boards Association, I wanted to take a group of leaders to San Quentin. And we did that, but it offended somebody, another person who works in the county. It offended her that I would want to do that. I wanted to do it because I wanted to learn more about the school to prison pipeline, and I wanted to talk directly to prisoners on what we can do as elected officials, but it offended somebody else. And as she was offended, we had to sort of work through that. It was really painful, right? And one day I did a Google search. Why are white people so dumb when it comes to race? That was my Google search. And up popped up white fragility and the research around that I had never heard of. And I think that's when I got it, right? But I still haven't gotten it all the way. I am still working on it. And that's why I said to Shanice, you can help lead us, which I don't think she wants. I don't know if she liked it when I said that again, but it's ongoing work and it's painful. And we have to do that as individuals and as an elected body. We have to be vulnerable that this is really painful work. And yes, we have to do it with teachers. We have to do it throughout the organization. You don't do it in one training, right? It's a commitment to continue to do this work. One of the things I want to do as a board is I want to read together. A friend of mine is on the California State CASA board, and they're reading together. They just read this book. I can't pull it fast enough. It's called The Language of Flowers about foster youth. I'm reading that book right now. It's so painful to read. That body read that book together. When you read that book, you understand what foster youth go through. I want to do that as an elected body. I hope the new board will start reading some of the fabulous books that are out there that will teach us about this issue.
All right, thank you so much, Carrie. And for our next candidate that is going to be speaking, just make sure. we have Georgia.
Okay, thank you. So I think that this is a never-ending conversation, and it shouldn't end. And there are always different elements and to the conversation, depending on who's in it. I think that it's an issue around not just race, it's an issue around age, it's issues around religions, it's issues around different types of backgrounds. I think that what's important, and Shanice hit on that, is being open to different perspectives, regardless of whom they're coming from, right? You don't want to shut down a conversation before you have it. Though, I will say this, in our busy time, where we're constantly trying to do more and more and more, it makes it easier to do that. And so I think it's really incumbent on every person to put aside a lot of these distractions that take up their mind space and allow them to sit back and really sit with those different perspectives. I'm going to talk about something that has happened to me recently, in that this might come as a shock to everybody, but I actually have members of the other side of the aisle in my family. And some of them live in a deep, deep red state called Texas. And for all of you who don't know, Texas is a difficult place. And I've been having ongoing conversations with a 90-year-old uncle who falls prey to every single email he gets from his friends about what's wrong with America. And I think y'all can understand what that's going to be about. And yet we engage and continue to have conversations to find our commonality within this pretty significant difference. And I think that that's what's important. I think this board has made efforts in that direction. I don't disagree with Carrie that there's more that should and could be done in terms of having the board move forward. I think that it will make the district stronger if we can actually have more honest and authentic discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Georgia. The next candidate would be Rich. Now we'll begin the timer when you begin to speak.
Sure. Well, I know one of the missions, part of the mission of this organization is acknowledge diversity. I think this question, everybody is acknowledging there's diversity throughout the Sequoia Union High School District, throughout our region and our area. The work is never done, and we start with ourselves. Other people have said that before, and I wholeheartedly agree. When I was on the board at Las Amitas, we had almost all the school board, almost all the teachers and all the administrators participated in the Tools for Tolerance program put on at the Simon Wiesenthal Museum down in LA. They call it the Museum of Tolerance. And the approach that they took was that it's important to listen to everybody, to listen and understand the story, understand the why, understand the person, that there's a story to the situation, and to listen, to understand. To me, that the important thing is to talk to people, to engage, to participate in situations like this, and to listen to all parts of the community. And as a school board member, an important thing is to encourage the people that are running the processes to get the things that eventually get to the school board for approval, for those processes to include, and for that to be something, include as many people as possible, include as many subgroups within the district, every city, every region, and for that to be something that the school board insists on.
Thank you so much, Rich.
Yep.
For our last candidate that we'll be hearing from will be Shamar. Now we'll start the timer when you begin to speak.
Okay, so I would just like to spend my minute really talking about what this looks like on the ground. Again, as an educator, we cannot undermine the importance of, when we're talking about hiring, people look for people that they feel reflect them. And as an educator who's done this work for 20 years, I have primarily, since my teaching time, primarily worked in primarily Caucasian environments. And the times that I have been sought out, when I, show up, people find me and they're like, I am so glad you're here. And there's this sense of there's somebody here that can represent me, or that feels like me, that may have some similar experience as me. And so when we think about recruiting and hiring, which is absolutely where it starts, and I think Shanice hit it on the head with HR, you have to first have some of those initial people in your organization. And you'd be amazed how people are attracted to those people. And then there is a ripple effect. We can all have values around, diversity and inclusion, but until they're actually key players at the highest level, at the management level, at the site level, there's always going to be a gap. There have to be site advocates, there have to be district advocates, but they actually have to be people in the organization who have a say. And that can also recruit and attract, and you want to keep them. And also having those people in your organization makes a world of difference. And so we have to start somewhere. This is a big issue and a big problem that has, been around for a while, but starting with key players, diversifying the board is a start. And I think that sends a tremendous message to our community.
Right. Those are all of the questions. And so we'll be moving forward with a wrap up with Cecilia and Julie, just to make sure that we're on schedule and everybody leaves at that point in time.
Thank you, Jack Kim, for co-moderating, and thank you everyone for being here. I first would like to give some space to Julie, who has been working behind the scenes and keeping up with the chat.
Okay, so just as a note that the district's map has been talked about and acknowledged that Area C is really large. Area C is the whole west side of the district. And we have some questions too that have come in. And Jackie made a really great point, Jackie Sebrian, that teachers are born inside of students. So as we're looking to increase cultural humility, we're looking to students to instill that as well, so that they can have conversations that can move things forward. We knew that this would be way too much to cover. We couldn't boil the entire ocean in this meeting, nor could we in a second. But we have one question that came up in the Q&A. Are all panelists able to read that? Or is it just me that can read that? Okay, so Ms. Shrinda Bryant asked a question for next time. And maybe that's a good place to pass it to you, Cecilia, to lay the groundwork and close it up.
Thank you, Julie. And the question that Sharinda put in there, I hope everyone reads it. I think it is a great place to start for the next conversation, and I hope that all of you can attend. And because this conversation isn't just about one person, I would love if there, and this is 15 seconds, 30 seconds max, just so that we stop on time, because we literally have 2 minutes. So let's take 15 seconds each. If you can just say where you live. That was the one part I forgot to ask you to include, and I think Shanice was the only one that identified where she lives specifically. And I would love to end it on that note. It's just saying, hi, my name is, and I live in, vote for me. Thank you all.
And thank you.
And we'll start with Miss Jack, with Georgia.
Thank you. I am Georgia Jack, and I live in Redwood City.
I'm Rich Ginn. I live in unincorporated portion of Menlo Park.
I'm Shamar Edwards, and I also live in Menlo Park.
And I'm Carrie Dubois, and I live in San Carlos.
And I'm Shanice Stevenson. I live in East Palo Alto.
And I am Cecilia Taylor and Miss Julie Shanson, and we have Anielka Perez. We are all part of Belhaven in Action, and we thank you all for participating in this much needed candidate forum, and we appreciate all of you putting your hat in the ring to run for a much needed seat. Have a great rest of the weekend.
Thank you so much.
Thank you.
So much.
Thank you very much.
Good questions. Thank you.
Everyone. Thank you for the attendees as well. All right. Bye.